report tonight on USA Today.
Survivors of the Armenian earthquake as the estimates of death and destruction mount. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. The Soviet government tonight declared a national day of mourning for tomorrow. With each passing hour, the toll of death and destruction in Soviet Armenia must be revised upward. The Republic's news agency now says Wednesday's earthquake may have killed 100,000 people. CBS News has obtained exclusive pictures that give us the first detailed record of the immense scope of the damage. Barry Peterson is in Moscow.
There was fear of aftershocks today, fear of more cruel blows against an already devastated land. In the most dramatic pictures yet from the area, it is a land where whole city blocks have collapsed, where streets are filled with debris, and most of all, a land of the suddenly homeless, dazed and stunned, huddling against the winter cold. What food can be found is cooked outside. The earthquake struck at midday when streets were crowded, businesses open, when schools were in session. We got a child out of here, said one rescuer, but we need more people. It is hardest to get the help into the areas hardest hit. Railroads and highways are damaged, bridges destroyed. Rescuers say there is not enough heavy equipment, so they are left desperately digging to save the living and find the dead. My father is dead, he says. Anyone in there is dead. They speak and work calmly. So busy the shock has yet to set in. So busy that the search for survivors goes on through the night. The first supplies have reached the area, and the injured are now flowing out to medical facilities across the Soviet Union. The first injured were airlifted into Moscow tonight. Extra hospital beds were set up in corridors. Their stories, as sad as their wounds, are grave. I waited 3 hours for rescue, said this man. I saw everything. It was beyond belief. If I could have killed myself, I would have. At another hospital specializing in burns, medical personnel tried to help a critically injured 12-year-old boy. The doctors were honest. We don't know if he will live. Moscow citizens lined up today to give blood. I don't have relatives in Armenia, one woman said, but I want to do my part. Food and clothes were being gathered elsewhere in the country as well. It's our responsibility to help one another, said one Soviet citizen. In Yerevan, the capital of Armenia, volunteers lined up, promising to help with the rescue and the coming months of rebuilding. In years past, the Soviet Union barely spoke about disasters and took care of its own. Now, perhaps as a sign of new times, officials are admitting they need help and accepting it from around the world. One American was there just after the earthquake struck.
There's thousands and thousands still buried in the rubble. Right now, they're still trying to dig for survivors. All of the others, they're leaving behind. They know buildings that have hundreds and hundreds of people in them, but they hear no voices. They're not digging into those. They're digging into the buildings where they hear someone's voice.
Soviet television tonight even gave time to the Moscow Metropolitan Patriarch, a rare event in this officially atheistic country. He encouraged those who already pray to pray a lot harder. There were a few who came to the Armenian church in Moscow today, but most of the parishioners have left, hurrying to Armenia, hurrying to help. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Moscow.
Following up on one of Barry Peterson's points, Gorbachev glasnost has had a direct bearing on this disaster in two major ways. It's brought unprecedented coverage in the official Soviet media and unprecedented official calls for relief help, calls being answered eagerly in America and Europe. Tom Fenton in London has our first report.
Soviet natural disasters were state secrets in the old days, but Gorbachev's Soviet Union is not only revealing the full extent of this tragedy, it's allowing its media to criticize the shoddy construction that contributed to the death toll, and even admits it could use a little help from its capitalist friends.
We need medicaments, first of all, blood. We need more things which can help to the people to live.
The Soviet embassy in Britain today was receiving medicine and clothing from the public. The London branch of the Moscow Narodny Bank opened its counters to donations and immediately collected hundreds of thousands of dollars. The response from around the world has been overwhelming. Moscow TV showed the arrival today in Yerevan of a large French medical and rescue contingent, including sniffer dogs. From Switzerland, there was a team normally used for avalanche rescues. The British have sent the experts who proved valuable in the Mexico City earthquake, with sophisticated infrared detectors and super-sensitive microphones. Soviet officials could hardly believe how much help is pouring in.
We are very absolutely overwhelmed by this gesture.
The international response is developing into one of the biggest relief efforts the world has ever seen. That really shouldn't have surprised the Soviets. They only had to ask. Tom Fenton, CBS News, London.
A Moscow hockey team was on the ice in Illinois last night, but they didn't play in Peoria until the hat was passed, collecting money for Armenian earthquake victims.
I think they're people just like we are, and I think we should help our fellow man.
All across the country, there's been an outpouring of sympathy and supplies and a huge amount of cash.
$1,500.
The Jewish organization B'nai B'rith gave at the Soviet embassy this morning. Catholic Relief Services is helping through the Armenian Church, whose New York Archbishop found a lot of checks were in the mail. Audiences at the Moscow Circus performing in California have given money. So has a caviar king in New York.
The response here in this country, throughout the country, has just been tremendous.
It's partly traditional generosity in a time of crisis, say the experts, and partly the product of something new.
Because of Gorbachev's efforts to thaw the Cold War, people are less reluctant to hold back aid. They feel more generous toward the Soviet Union because they're not as hostile towards them.
A team of American-trained rescue dogs and the first plane load of relief supplies from the U.S. could leave by tomorrow, organizers said. The aid is all non-governmental, though Soviet and U.S. officials met late today in Washington to ease the way for special American flights to Armenia.
We appreciate very much the volunteers from the medical so to say, circles of the United States, but at the present time we need the medical equipment assistance in this respect.
Part of the airlift now being planned, 50,000 new care packages, like the food boxes famous after World War II, that were part of a program phased out more than 20 years ago. Dan?
Richard, how can anyone be sure that the aid is getting to where it's going to be most helpful?
Well, the relief effort getting underway already promises to be so big that the concern is a legitimate one. Experts say the best insurance for a donor is to make a contribution that will be channeled through one of the organizations already dealing with the Soviets. One mentioned by the Soviet embassy today was the Armenian Benevolent Association, or one of the international agencies operating in Armenia. The Red Cross, the UN are two examples.
Thanks, Richard. When the earthquake struck, Soviet troops keeping order in neighboring Azerbaijan were sent to help in relief efforts. Today, there were reports that rioters in the Azerbaijan capital of Baku took advantage of this to set fire to 9 Armenian homes. Ethnic violence in that region has claimed dozens of lives. Now, today's other major story, Lebanon. Israel chose this first anniversary of the Palestinian uprising in its occupied territories to launch Israel's deepest attack inside Lebanon in years. When the 9-hour battle was over, an Israeli officer and at least 8 fighters on the other side were dead. CBS News camera crews were in the area when the fighting erupted. Correspondent Bob Simon in Tel Aviv has our report.
Israeli warplanes roared in from the sea, providing cover for the commandos who'd been on the ground for hours. The target was the Lebanon headquarters of the Radical Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. It was all happening 8 miles from Beirut. It was the first commando raid deep inside Lebanon since Israel invaded the country in 1982. Amateur anti-aircraft brigades came up the road, along with troops and ambulances and people going home for the weekend. A woman and a child tried to flag down some vehicle, any vehicle, just to get out of the line of fire. Their mission was successful. But the Israelis were having problems. 4 commandos were isolated and under fire near a hillside monastery. Helicopters came in, hovering, circling, trying to locate the men. Anti-aircraft batteries let loose. Being taken alive by the PLO in Lebanon is an Israeli nightmare. It looked like it was going to happen. But then the men were spotted. All 4 were rescued, though one made it by clinging desperately to the skids while the helicopter lifted out of artillery range. But world opinion was not impressed with Israeli daring. George Shultz was unusually outspoken.
I had thought by this time the Israelis would have learned their lesson about putting troops well inside of Lebanon. It didn't work before, and I'm surprised.
3 Israeli soldiers were wounded. Thousands were deployed today in the West Bank and Gaza, trying to prevent any Palestinian celebrations of the anniversary of their uprising. They managed in the large towns, mainly by imposing curfews. But they could not be everywhere. They could not be in every little village, for example, which is where the big parties were held. The Israeli command insists the timing of today's raid was purely military. But sources in Jerusalem told CBS News the decision to do it today was taken by the cabinet. Objective: remind Palestinians that anniversaries and celebrations notwithstanding, there are certain realities. And there they were today for everyone to see. Bob Simon, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
And still to come on tonight's CBS Evening News, good checkups for President and Mrs. Reagan. Correspondent Jerry Bowen on fire blowing in the wind in the San Fernando Valley. And David Browning on monumental plans that are like something else, even for Los Angeles.
Wow.
What you eating, babe?
Nothing, honey.
Oh, you can tell me.
Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch.
Looks good, Private. What is it?
Nothing, honey. Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch.
When you've got the special taste of nuts and honey all wrapped up in a hearty crunch, what more can you say? Here's what. New Nut and Honey Crunch Biscuits. Crunchy biscuits of wholesome shredded wheat with that special nut and honey taste inside.
Wow.
Kellogg's Nut and Honey.
Now in biscuits, too.
Crunch.
The Christmas ornaments of Hallmark. Hallmark ornaments aren't ordinary decorations. They're special little presents. For your family, your friends, for yourself. Keepsakes that bring back warm memories of wonderful people and wonderful times. You'll find them only at Hallmark, where there's more to Christmas than ever before.
If you have a cold and take Sudafed, there's something you should know. Contact 12-hour caplet. Stop the sneezing and runny nose that Sudafed can't.
Gesundheit.
Until there's a cure, there's contact.
Where can you find a 46-inch screen TV with all this and more? A picture that's bright and clear with a cabinet this beautiful, all at this price. Just $54 a month. Now, only at Sears.
President and Nancy Reagan both had hospital checkups today, trying to ensure neither has had any recurrence of cancer. A brief White House statement tonight said a small tissue sample was taken from Mr. Reagan's colon for testing and, quote, appeared to be benign. CBS News White House correspondent Bill Plant has the latest on the health of the President and First Lady.
President and Mrs. Reagan left Bethesda Naval Hospital late this afternoon following their annual physical exams, flashing the thumbs-up sign and declaring that the doctors had given them a clean bill of health. The President and the First Lady were also both examined for any recurrence of the cancers each has had removed in recent years. Doctors said Mrs. Reagan's breast x-ray showed no evidence of cancer of any kind. In Mr. Reagan's colon examination, One small piece of tissue, resembling a polyp, was removed for testing, though the president's doctor said it appeared to be benign. Other experts say such findings are to be expected.
It's not uncommon for a person to have polyps who's had previous polyps of the colon, and if you see anything that looks like a polyp, you're going to remove it and have it examined under the microscope. So that's not unusual at all.
When President Reagan first had cancer surgery, First Lady Nancy Reagan was reluctant to disclose any details. But since she underwent surgery for breast cancer just over a year ago, Mrs. Reagan has talked openly about her own experience, and she has urged women to get regular breast x-rays, a suggestion repeated in tonight's White House statement. After their tests, the Reagans also visited with Supreme Court Justice William Brennan in the hospital for pneumonia, but on the mend and expected home soon. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
A federal judge in Washington today ordered the National Economic Commission to make its meeting next Monday public. Rather than comply, the whole bipartisan panel created to recommend ways to knock back the huge federal budget deficit abruptly canceled Monday's session altogether. The commission insists it needs to meet privately to encourage candid discussion. The judge ruled this violates the law, a law requiring in this country federal advisory panels to hold public meetings. World Trade Representatives meeting in Montreal agreed today to disguise deep disagreements among themselves by postponing any decisions until next April. Main reason, a bitter dispute over farm policy. The United States is insisting the European Common Market eliminate government subsidies to farmers. Europe is willing only to reduce them. One negotiator said, and I quote now, "We're staring down the barrel of a full-blown trade war."
Over the years, Wheaties has always been the breakfast of champions. Because we've always stood for the best. With what we put inside the box and who we put outside. Today we welcome our newest champion. And we've never stood quite as tall.
Heartburn flaring up?
It never seems to stop.
How long have you been taking antacids?
Seems like forever.
Have you told the doctor?
Won't he just tell me to take these?
Not necessarily. Nowadays, doctors can diagnose and treat your heartburn and indigestion.
Now that's worth a visit to the doctor.
If you've been suffering from persistent heartburn, indigestion, or stomach pain, this could be a serious problem. Make an appointment to see your doctor now. Brought to you by Glaxo Pharmaceuticals.
Splish splash, I was taking a bath long about a Saturday night. Gloved up, got a clog in my tub, but Liquid Drano fixed it up right.
Liquid Drano, the liquid strong enough to be called Drano.
Shopping can make you feel terrific when you find fabulous color, fit, and style. But when you also find the Made in the USA label, you feel even better. It's a great feeling.
Made in the USA.
All questions and no answers tonight about that missile attack yesterday, the one that downed a U.S. plane, apparently chartered by the U.S. Agency for International Development. Biggest question, why was the plane flying over a Sahara Desert war zone? Wyatt Andrews at the State Department has been checking around.
The 5 Americans presumed dead were called humanitarian heroes today by U.S. government officials who released this videotape showing the kind of locust spraying mission the plane had been flying last Wednesday. The mystery is why anyone would aim a heat-seeking missile at a civilian plane.
My personal guess is whoever did it made a mistake. Clearly, this wasn't a military operation, so what possible gain could anyone have?
But another mystery is, what was this plane doing here? The airspace between Dakar and Rabat, where the plane was flying, is recognized as civilian, and yet there's a war on below. Fighting between Morocco and a rebel group called the Polisario has claimed at least 4 civilian planes before. Some of the relatives of the victims complained they were not aware of the risks. Trina Blackmer lost a husband and a son.
I never dreamt anything like this, being struck by a missile.
I've never heard of anything being an uprising in Morocco or any part of that country until today.
U.S. officials said there was no need to warn the pilots of danger, that the pilots were experienced, the air corridor presumed safe, and besides, that the plane was off the clock. The contract with the government expired Wednesday.
Why didn't we warn them? Because we were not responsible for where they were going or how they were getting there.
Who shot the plane down? The guerrilla group here freely admits owning anti-aircraft missiles, but says there was no fighting at the time and denies targeting the plane.
We are against terrorism, and we think that hijacking plane or firing on civilian plane is dead wrong.
And then there's the possibility this mistake was Morocco's, the country with the most to gain from the locust spraying program, but which also owns missiles. And nothing about this investigation rules out the chance the plane was shot down by friendly fire. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, the State Department.
Solidarity Union founder Lech Wałęsa traveled abroad today for the first time since the Polish communist government banned the labor movement some 7 years ago. The elated Wałęsa arrived in Paris for UN-sponsored human rights observances. He said the Stalinist era when human rights were trampled is ending and that Poland is finally moving in the right direction.
Feel your oats. Post. Oats, oats. Feel your oats.
Post. Oats, oats.
With new Post Oat Flakes. Zero cholesterol. Whole grain oats with oat brand nutrition. And delicious with a taste of golden toasted whole grain oats. No one packs nutrition and taste into an oat flake like Post. Feel your oats.
Post. Oats, oats.
With new Post Oat Flakes. Feel your oats.
You've never seen a shaver like this before. It's the new 3M surgical clipper by Remington. Hospitals are now using it, replacing blades to shave patients for surgery safely and comfortably. And you can benefit from this advanced technology by using the Remington Microscreen Rechargeable. It shaves as close as a blade or your money back. And the Lady Remington Rechargeable also shaves without a cord. Now, lowest price ever on Remington Microscreen Rechargeable.
Gas pain, bloating. Gas-X has the strongest, fastest relief ingredient. Painful gas is like beer bubbles. Add the leading antacid. Add Gas-X. Only Gas-X gets rid of the gas. The strongest, fastest reliever for gas pain and bloating. Gas-X.
When Mom gets a cough and cold, everyone suffers.
Mom, Dad's ironing.
Time to doctor that cough with Robitussin.
Look, Mom's feeling better.
Robitussin, recommended by more doctors, pharmacists, and Dr. Mom.
Los Angeles officials today declared a state of emergency as Santa Ana winds gusting at 70 miles an hour fanned a second devastating fire in as many days. One resident said it was just raining fire. Jerry Bowen is there.
Hot Santa Ana winds blowing in from the desert fanned the firestorm that lit up the canyons and damaged or destroyed a score of luxury houses on the northern edge of Los Angeles. At one time, 5,000 residents had evacuated homes in the Granada Hills and Porter Ranch areas, where prices start at $500,000. Some people had little time to escape.
My children just left. We took the dog and we took the bird and out the door, and that was it.
The local high school football field became the evacuation corral for some 70 horses. More than 1,200 firefighters and a small air force of water-dropping helicopters fought to contain the brush fire, which quickly consumed 3,000 acres. Too quickly for some residents.
We had maybe 5-10 minutes tops, and then flames were shooting over the house, like at night, straight over the roof. And there was just nothing you could do. We just had to get in the car with the dog and the child and leave.
Late this morning, people who lost their homes were allowed to return to salvage what they could.
But my daughter was happy we saved the Girl Scout jackets.
The property loss will easily be in the millions of dollars, but no serious injuries have been reported, and the forecast calls for the Santa Anas to die down by tomorrow. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And in Honolulu, a report tonight that exiled Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos has been taken to a hospital by ambulance. A Marcos spokesman says he is suffering from congestive heart failure. No immediate word on Marcos's condition.
I woke up with this killer pressure from a sinus cold.
Sinus cold.
Pain.
Pressure. Congestion.
Couldn't breathe.
Pain.
Congestion.
Pressure.
The pain was awful.
Congestion. Pressure.
I took new maximum strength Dristan. I'm here.
Discover new maximum strength Dristan. It combines 2 strong medicines to drain sinus cavities, unclog congestion, to relieve pressure and pain.
And it won't make you drowsy.
New maximum strength Dristan. Strong medicine for tough sinus colds.
Tony, what are you eating now? Fruitful Bran?
Yeah, it's peaches and raisins.
Hey, Tony, that looks good.
It is. It's Fruitful Bran. It's apples and dates.
You just said it was peaches and raisins.
Well, it was.
Don't lie to your father.
Well, now it's raisins, apples, and dates.
Didn't you just hear your mother?
Hey, it is apples and dates.
Give me the box, Rosa. I'll decide.
Only Fruitful Bran has so many fruits, you get a different fruitful combination in every bite.
It's peaches, raisins, and dates.
Kellogg's Fruitful Bran. It's never the same bite twice.
Shoot some slices, shoot some shreds, shoot some salad. Salad shooter.
Presto Salad Shooter, slicer, shredder. Point and shoot right where you want it. To clean, just rinse and wipe. Store anywhere.
Shoot some salad. Salad shooter.
From Presto.
There's only one place you'll find all the Disney classic film characters and toys, like the authentic Disney World toy train, with engine, tender, trolley, remote control, and more. It's only $50. Only at Sears.
And as the sun sinks slowly in the west, by 1992 in Los Angeles, it may be sinking behind something called the steel cloud. Some say that's a vision. Others call it a sight. David Browning went by for an advanced look.
Think of New York, and there's the Statue of Liberty. Think of San Francisco, and you think of the Golden Gate Bridge. But think of Los Angeles. There are palm trees and there are movie stars, but about the only architectural wonders you ever see are at the Oscars. Which is why they've unveiled plans for a huge monument to Los Angeles to be built right here, on top of the Hollywood freeway.
It reflects the accomplishments.
And here it is, in model form. No adjustment of your set is necessary. The monument will be 12 stories high, with a time museum, a musical forest, an immigration museum, an aquarium, and giant screens so you can see movies and fish from the freeway below.
A museum is a place for dreams and for memories, and this is a construction site for dreams and memories, which seems a perfect metaphor for the West Coast.
But others think it looks more like a bad freeway accident.
It looks hideous.
Well, it looks sort of like collapsed buildings.
Would seem like they could do better than that.
The design was chosen by a citizens committee that included actor George Takei of Star Trek fame, who acknowledges the flack over this is thicker than anything he ever took on the Starship Enterprise.
I'm delighted that there's this kind of controversy, because what that says is that the people of Los Angeles care about our city.
Remember, says Takei, Parisians sneered when the Eiffel Tower went up. New Yorkers razzed the Empire State Building. Seattle hooted the Space Needle at first. Never mind, say critics, what's at stake here is the good name of Los Angeles.
What will become for the rest of the country will be a joke that will confirm the kookiness of L.A. I don't like it.
It may be years before it's ever built. In the meantime, Los Angeles will have to make do with its other monuments, like the Capitol Records Building, the Tail of the Pop hot dog stand, and Randy's Donuts. Now there's a cultural landmark you can sink your teeth into. David Browning, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, I'll see you Monday. Good night.
This is CBS.